Hello, everyone, and welcome to our latest webinar, Unlock End-to-End Supply Chain and Fulfillment with Dynamics 365 and Cario. My name is Gareth Boyle, the Marketing Manager for Microsoft here at Fusion5, and I'm joined today by Tom Veach, Solutions Strategy Manager for F&O at Fusion5, and Fiona Marshall, Director at Cario. Before I hand over to our presenters, just a quick bit of housekeeping. If you do have any questions during the presentation, you can ask them via the Q&A section of your Teams application, and we'll address them during the final 10 minutes of the presentation. After the event's concluded, we'll also share a copy of the recording via email to those in attendance and for those who couldn't join today. With that out of the way, let's kick things off with our first presenter, Tom Veach. Tom.
Thanks, Gareth. Morning, everybody. It's quite an exciting thing that we're going to be showing you today. We're introducing Cario and the Microsoft Dynamics Finance and Operations, which is all about freight and when freight is integrated into F&O. Now, what I'm going to show you here is we've got when freight management is integrated, it's the final piece of your system. When the orders come in and they get routed out to your customers, we need to be able to have freight content and have it actually put onto a carrier and sent out to our customers. So what I'm going to show you today is we've actually integrated into the Cario system, allowing you to select multiple carriers, whichever carrier you want, as long as whatever you're signed up to, and put your freight and have it delivered out to the customer. Now, just a bit of an example here, we're starting off with manufacturing, warehousing, production, all the way through from B2B, commerce, all the way through to our Cario integration layer. So you'll see that. Now, I have another quick slide before I get into the demo. This slide just covers some of the key things that we include in this whole integration piece. We're looking at our pickup tail lift. We've got hand unload. All these features are part of the F&O solution now that you can select on your customer record, allowing you to make sure that you're sending the right truck out to the address with the right parameters to actually make it work. So this is all at a customer level. Now, I will jump into a quick demo. This is our finance and operations environment. I'm going to start off with the sales order that you're going to see here that's been created into the system. Now, everything I show you today can actually be automated. So even though I'm going to click through the process here and show you, it's actually a video, and I'll show you what it's going to do. But essentially, you could have this done automated through batch processes. And you'll see when I kick this off, we have our sales order here. We're going to go into our sales order. And you'll see here, there's all our delivery information around the requested ship date and so on. And we're going to go into our site and warehouse, all the standard functionality of F&O. And then we've got these other pieces here, which is a shipping carrier. All of these can be predefined at a customer level so that when the order is actually released for freight calculation, it's got all that data there. So here you can see we've got 48 as a quantity. It's a full pallet size, but we can go right down to a box, and we're going to go into the transportation piece and we're going to shop our rates. Now, this is where the actual integration starts, and we connect through to the Cario system, and we actually request for the freight costs for these items. Now, as you can see, I've got multiple carriers here, and I can pick any one of these carriers that's going to ship this item out. So I pick my freight carrier, I then assign it, and this is using standard F&O functionality at this point in time. There's nothing here that's customized. We assign the freight charge, and this, as I say, this can be all automated. And you can see there's the freight charge, and it's going with TNT. Okay, and you'll see here where I'll go back to the actual sales order. And I will then, from the sales order, I can go and show you where the freight cost is being allocated to the sales order. And you can see here in a second, I'll go and actually show you, here's the totals. And you can see here's the freight cost is being allocated to the sales order. And this is all can be done automated. So even though I'm showing it step by step through the process here, it can be all automated as part of it, even right down to printing out shipping labels. They can all be automated. Now, the best part about this process, at this point in time is just a quote. Okay, it's based on the sales order quantity, the line items that we've got in there, but the final cost doesn't actually get applied to the order until we actually pick the order and confirm the shipment. At that point in time, if your order is changed, it will actually go out and get a new freight calculation at that point in time. and update the order with the final price. So, and that's basically the integration at that point. Now, what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to hand it over, as soon as I finish this video, I'm going to hand it over to Fiona, and she's going to run through from a Cario's point of view. Thanks, Fiona.
Great. Thanks, Tom. All right. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for taking the time. As Gareth said, I'm Fiona Marshall. I'm the CEO of Cario. So today, I'm just going to share my screen and get this up. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about Cario and how it powers the Fusion5 integration that you've just seen. So first off, I'm going to talk a little bit about us, and then I'm going to talk about why freight is so hard in Australia and New Zealand. One of the things I love about my job is I go into all different businesses, and they all might have different businesses that are selling different products, but they've all got very similar challenges, and that is dealing in a complex freight environment and how do you make that simple. So we're going to talk a little bit about why freight is hard. Then I'm going to delve into a day in a life across different facets of a business, a standard business. So operations, sales, finance, and drivers. Then we're going to touch on some of the AI initiatives we're doing with Microsoft and Fusion5, and lastly, end on our customers. So a little bit about Cario. So we started Cario about 8 years ago. My background has been in supply chain for almost 20 years, supply chain technologies, and we saw an opportunity to really simplify a fragmented market in both Australia and New Zealand around carrier management and freight. So Cario started with the idea of having something very simple to use for anyone across your business that hides the spaghetti of carrier connections, freight processes, and random freight systems that might have sprung up in an organisation over time. So the idea of Cario is it hides that complexity, and everything is hidden beneath the surface. So you as a business don't need to know about how it works, about how the freight process works. You just need to be able to access a simple system. Everything you see today is available within F&O, because that leads me to the next part around Fusion5. Our partnership with Fusion5 has become really important because we've recognised most businesses, they don't want another freight system. They want to do everything within their ERP. They want to train all of their team on the one system, being an ERP. But the problem you have is that ERPs haven't developed enough to be able to handle all the complexities that come with freight. And because there's a lot of them, freight is really complex. We think it should be simple, but it's not. So Cario has been designed to be fully integrated with an ERP, with F&O. And so from F&O, you can access anything within Cario and still not have to train everyone up on a new system. Right, so let's talk about why freight is hard. So in Australia and New Zealand, the market is really fragmented. You've got 10,000 odd freight carriers in Australia. I had 500 in New Zealand. I feel like that's under quoting it, but that's the number we got. They all specialise in different things. Some of them will specialise in express sending overnight. Others will specialise in bulky freight. Some others specialise in DGs or dangerous goods. Or fragile products. Some specialise on the eastern seaboard, others do Tasmania really well, or the South Island of New Zealand. So it's really hard when you've got such a fragmented market to be able to easily simplify the process of freight management if you want to service customers all over those regions. The other thing that's hard is companies often have diverse freight needs. So they might send a parcel with one carrier, but they might also need to be able to send pallets. And they may have some customers that need some products that they send that are fragile. So one carrier is not going to handle all of that diversity. We also have B2B and B2C. So some companies might predominantly send B2B, others might send B2C, which introduces other challenges around residential deliveries and authorities to leave and things like that. So that is the challenge, and freight should be simple. Everyone thinks it should be simple. It's moving a box from one destination to another. But the reality is in the market, it's never simple. And so there's hundreds of different spaghetti kind of connections between different carriers, which means that for an organisation, you've got no clear view of all your freight, both in terms of where your freight is, but probably more importantly, how much your freight is costing you and where are the opportunities to save money and things like that. Right, so let's jump into the different benefits by role. So I want to talk today a bit about each area here that we've got: operations, sales, customer service, finance, and also drivers as well. So let's jump into operations. When we go out to a site, We often hear very similar things from the supply chain managers or operation leads. They want to know which carrier is best for what type of freight and for when. Often there's someone like a Johnny in the warehouse who knows exactly which carrier to use. He's been working at your organisation for 20 years. The challenge is that's all in his head. So if he's not there tomorrow, who knows what to use where, right? And if you want to scale, that's actually not scalable if all that information is in one person's head. So that's often a challenge that we find in companies we visit. The next one, my CEO wants me to save 5% on freight. Well, that's really, really common. I think every single business at some point looks at how they can reduce their freight costs. Freight is one of the biggest costs of a business that's operating. So generally speaking, it's about 10% of your revenue line. So how do I reduce that but not change my systems or processes? Because it's not worth it if I have to change the whole process within the warehouse. The other challenges we hear here are just simple ones around where is my freight? Has it been delivered? My sales team want to know where my quotes are. Just simple visibility of having that, all your freight management within the one system. They just don't have access to it. They don't have that at the fingertips. And the last one is really important, cost to serve each customer. Lots of companies want to be able to tell which customers cost them more money to serve versus others. They want to prioritize their best customers, and customers that aren't so good, they might not want to give the same service to. That is where you want to be able to bring this freight data back into your ERP to match it with the revenue to be able to get that cost to serve, which is really, really important. So I want to be able to swap carriers with no change to my process. I want to be able to press a button and have an orange truck turn up rather than a blue truck, because for whatever reason that orange truck is costing me more money, or maybe there's been a disagreement between our CFO and their rates negotiator, and they don't want to use that truck anymore, that carrier anymore. I also want redundancy. Throughout COVID, we saw a lot of challenges around depot closures, and also we also saw a couple of big companies have cyber attacks where they were offline for months. As running a business, freight is so important to me that I can't afford to have no redundancy across my carrier network. So we often see companies that they need the ability to be able to press that button and have a different freight carrier turn up without any change to their team. They don't want to have to train their team on a new carrier, new system, new process. That redundancy is really important, especially as we scale, as a company scales. I also want I want the visibility of all my data in the one spot. I need to be able to negotiate better rates. I want to optimize my spending. I also want to be able to have all these freight processes optimized, so there's not manual bespoke processes that I'm not aware of happening within a warehouse. And for some customers, I might have specific rules that I want to have, but I still want it standard. So my best customers, I might say, I only want to send my products via express to them because I want to give them a better service, but I still want all that standardized in the one system. So there might be some business rules that need to be hidden underneath the interface so that you're still standardizing using the same system, same process, but the system should know that that customer gets this specific carrier because it's a special customer. So I'm going to jump into this video now. This video shows how, here we go. This video will show how a consignment is created in Cario. So we can see here, all these fields can be pulled in from your F&O. So everything here can be pulled from your F&O into the system. So this can be all automated. I'm showing you what happens on the screen so you understand it, but often these screens aren't seen by a customer because it's hidden beneath the ERP. Here we put in all our names, details. We can put in our special order cost centers over here, online sales. We can put in references that pull through from the ERP. We can also have margins applied so that we can actually charge our customers and make money, make freight a profit center. So get an ROI on your freight. Now, once I've inputted all that information, I can get a list of all the available services that cater to that lane. Now, it's going to ignore any carriers that won't handle that type of freight. So if your freight is out of profile, it's not going to show a carrier that wouldn't take it. Even though they might be able to do that lane, it won't show if it can't take that type of freight. DG is a good example. You'll only get carriers that can take DG freight if it's a DG good. So what we see here are all the carriers that your company has a relationship with. These are your rates. And so you can see your freight cost, you can see your fees, and you can see the ETA. At this point in time, I can choose whether I want a faster at a higher cost, or I can choose whether I want the cheapest. Now, if I click play, you can see here, we have a full breakdown, if you can see that there, of the actual taxes. That's really important when we get to invoice reconciliation, because by capturing all that detail up front means that when it comes to reconciliation, it's far clearer to see exactly what you should have been charged, and it allows you to claim more money back from the carrier, which is what everyone wants. All right, so now I can choose my carrier that I've chosen. The labels are populated. They can be automatically printed. We won't see them here because they are appearing on another screen, but that's the next step in the freight management process. That is the same process for every carrier. It doesn't, regardless of which carrier you're choosing, it's all standardized, and all this information is fed straight back into your ERP, F&O. Okay, so that's operations. Let's talk about sales. Often there's a bit of a disconnect between the sales and the operations teams. When we go on site to companies, we often hear sales want a quote right now, and they don't want to have to keep calling Johnny in the warehouse because Johnny in the warehouse doesn't like me, or Johnny in the warehouse thinks that I'm a salesperson, so he thinks that I'm just out to make money, and I don't really want to get the best thing for my customer. Johnny in the warehouse might love the truck driver of the orange truck, right? So he might always want to use the orange truck. What having a system like Cario does, it takes away any of that kind of bias around who the Johnny in the warehouse wants to use, or who the sales guy wants to use as well. So it actually puts it all in a system, so it's standardized and everyone across the business knows the parameters of which they're booking freight. So from a sales perspective, I love Cario because I want the ability to know what my freight's going to cost me immediately, so I can tell my customer, because I don't want to wait around for a week getting a quote from my warehouse. I also want to have the same visibility into where freight is. So it's a single source of truth. Whether that's in Cario or whether that's in your ERP, you can do either. Generally speaking, large organizations want it in the ERP because it means that they can then have the one system for the single source of truth, but it's still calling everything from Cario. The other big one is I want to be able to advise my customers proactively if orders are delayed. So if my freight isn't on time, I don't want my customer calling me up saying, where's my freight? I want to be able to tell them, hey, your freight's 2 days late, running 2 days late because of the weather in New South Wales, or because of the earthquake in Christchurch, or something like that. So I think it's really important to be able to, as a salesperson in customer service, you want to be able to proactively advise where my orders are and what's impacting them, because you don't want the customer, that's far better service than the customer finding out first. The other one is self-service. This is really, really important. It chews up so much time when you've got customers calling you for, where's my freight, where's my POD, which of course you can access in your system, but you want your customers to self-service. They also don't want to call you. They also want to be able to access it immediately. So as part of this, we actually built out a system called the Dealer Portal or Store Portal. It is a self-service system for key receivers. So your key customers, it could be a key store network. One of our customers is Super Retail Group. So they have BCF, boating, camping, fishing. For them, their stores are in the process of rolling this out now because their stores want the visibility of when kayaks are coming to their store, because they need the ability to have 2 people out the back to unload the truck. And that means that there's 2 less people than in the store. So they need to be able to manage that with their hiring and shift workers. So it's really important for stores and for key receivers and DCs to have that visibility of freight coming into your store. That also means that you can then proactively see where your freight is coming, and you don't have to call you don't need to call the company and say, where's my freight, right? So it's really, really good value add for companies to provide this. And what it does is it gives a standardized customer experience for them. So they can have a clear view of all their freight coming in. And it's not just their freight, it's freight across the Cario network. An example of that, one of our customers is Wink Australia, and so Wink send to most businesses in Australia and New Zealand, and so the stores that I was just talking about at BCF also see all their Wink deliveries coming in, of whether that's whether they've got printers coming or whether they've got some consumables coming from Wink, so they can actually manage their inbound freight deliveries. All right, so let me just bring this one up. This is the dealer portal, and what we're going to do when I get to the top, as you can see here, this is a Bunnings store. So I've logged in as a Bunnings store here, and this is what I will see. It's all the freight only coming to me across the Cario network. So anyone running on Cario, I can see here. They have to be running on Cario to be able to see this, but it just gives me a really nice ability to see where everything is. I can pick up. I can look at the PODs, so I can actually go in, regardless of carrier, see each POD for each consignment. I can look at all the events. I can look at any special instructions when that were needed. And we can see that was coming from Maze, that one. I can also see a different POD. So again, this cuts out the customer service noise for your own company, because your key receivers are seeing their freight coming in. Okay. So what we do see with large companies is they, generally speaking, click on the exceptions or the in transits, because they want to know about the freight that it has a problem with it. And so it's very easy to see here what's missing or what's coming. Okay. So that's sales department. What we also hear, of course, from salespeople is they want a standard customer experience for their customers. So ASNs, SMS messages telling me where my freight is, that's always important. Generally speaking, that's for B2C deliveries, but we do have a lot of B2B companies also sending ASNs and wanting to send that too. Right, let's talk about finance. What is it that finance people care about? As I said before, freight is a huge cost. It's often 10% of your revenue line. And very often CEOs say, if I'm looking for a cost saving, I look at my biggest line item, which is often freight. How do I save money on my freight? That's a common thing we hear. First step is actually getting the data standardized, so you can compare apples with apples, because there's no point if you don't have that correct, you can't actually make any smart insights or observations. So once you get the data right and standardized in a format, you can then start to make really smart decisions around which carriers could save me money, which ones will give me a better service, or what have you. So that is a key problem we hear about within finance teams. We also hear the common thing about sales teams choosing more expensive carriers. One thing that we implemented for a customer of ours, Cario Ingredients, is the lowest cost reporting around justifying why they haven't chosen the lowest cost carrier. So they had a challenge with their teams where their warehouse teams kept choosing more expensive carriers. So Cario Ingredients, we developed this as part of Cario, but it was effectively for them. It was a great idea by them, so we added it in. It allows Cario now to report across why the lowest cost wasn't chosen. So they can have a view of what they could have saved, and then they can see why they didn't save that money. And often there's, reasons. In their case, McDonald's is a really big customer for them, so they wanted to give an express service all the time to McDonald's. They wanted to make sure that they didn't care about cost. It was all about service for that particular customer of theirs. So there could be real reasons why you might use an expensive carrier, but if you don't have the data to understand, you can't do anything with that. So the other thing is invoice reconciliation. This is a really big part of Cario and something we see CFOs love. They absolutely love this part of it. What invoice reconciliation does is across our customers, it saves customers 5 to 7% of their freight invoices. Now, the way it does that is it captures all your freight costs up front, and then automatically it compares what you were supposed to be charged with what you were actually charged. And then the discrepancy, you can choose the parameters if you only want to focus on discrepancies above a certain dollar figure or what have you. You can choose that discrepancy, and that discrepancy you send straight back to the carrier. So it's fully automated, and it saves a huge amount of time for both for a team that might be manually reconciling, but also there are lots of companies out there that aren't properly reconciling at all. So you want a system to be able to do that because it's very time consuming and you want it to be automatic. So that's a really important problem for a lot of finance CFOs and finance teams. The other thing that I'm really proud about is our Scope 3 transport carbon reporting. So we built this about 3 or 4 years ago. We partnered with a local university in Australia and we thought, great, we've got this Scope 3 transport carbon reporting. All these companies are going to want it. It's going to, it's coming. It's really important. And unfortunately, nothing happened for a couple of years. We won an award at the Supply Chain Logistics Australia Awards for building it in partnering with Swinburne Uni. But personally, I felt it wasn't a success because we didn't have that many customers using it. Finally, in the last year or so, we're seeing a pickup of companies interested in it. Definitely our European customers have been reporting on carbon for a couple of years, so they have been using it. But in Australia and New Zealand, we're starting to see a pickup. So that's something I'm really proud about because we've had it there for many years and finally we're starting to see some traction. So that's a big part. Right, what else? I want to be able to, apart from carbon reporting, I also want to be able to optimize my transport pricing. I want to be able to make sure I'm getting the best deal. I want to make sure that I can really see where I can make savings, and I want to make them instantly. I don't want to wait 6 months to implement a new carrier. I want to be able to quickly switch if I can see the savings immediately. The other thing that I find really interesting is this one here, improving carrier competition. We had I'll just diverge on a case study we had at the Wink Australia Australia New Zealand is one of our customers, as I mentioned earlier. They came to us about 4 or 5 years ago. It was in COVID, and they had one carrier. They were just using TGE at the time, and they were given an up rate, over 30% up rate. So it was a significant amount of money, and they had 2 months to take it or leave it effectively. And the carrier really had them, they had no option. For Wink didn't have an option. They couldn't add another carrier in quick enough. But the head of procurement there went, I'm not going to be left in this position again. So he went out to market and looked at different systems and he chose Cario, and we implemented Cario. And since then, there have been no uprates no double-digit uprates. There's been a few uprates in the low digits, but very little because Wink now have 20-odd carriers that they have on their network. So TGE know that every single time, if they were to give them an uprate, Wink can look across their network and see what other options there are. And so it really improves that carrier competition and between TGE and all the other carriers. TGE now know that they can't just go and hit them with a huge uprate. So I think that redundancy and that ability to just swap carriers in and out is really important for a business to manage their cost line. Okay, so these are just some examples of some of the reporting that you might do. This is bringing freight data back into a Microsoft solution, Power BI here, and it can show you the ability to look at different con notes and look at different freight costs per con note. We are often providing reports on cost to serve for customers so that you can actually look at which customers are costing you the most money. It can also, once you start bringing in more data pools, for example, when you coming through an ERP, you can include customer service tickets and start looking at cost to serve for customer service tickets, and also revenue, of course. Okay, here's our Scope 3 carbon emissions information. What I find really interesting is, I don't really know what 259,000 kgs of carbon means, but I do know that 9,900 trees is a really big number. So we tried to bring everything back to something that like a person like me would just understand, which is the number of trees that I need to plant as opposed to just the carbon. So we do it by service, we do it by states, and then of course your annual report. So this is what most companies want. You can look at the carbon cost per consignment, but most companies want their annual report to include in their board papers at the end of the year. All right, finally, I'm going to talk about drivers. One thing we are seeing a bit of is companies that want to control some of their metro deliveries are hiring their own fleet or own driver, or it could be contracting a TGE or another carrier's truck on a regular basis. The problem with that is, of course, is then you have very different systems. You've got different experiences by your customer. And you can't always get that data back into the ERP. So it means you don't get the same view across your full freight network. So your own fleet and your third-party carriers. You want that all in one. So we actually built out our TMS as part of a rollout with Super Retail Group. We looked at the fact that they had a number of third-party carriers, but they also wanted to bring in their own fleet drivers. They were TGE drivers. So we have built that TMS out, and now you have the one system to manage all your freight. Doesn't matter what process, doesn't matter whether it's your own driver that's coming in or, you know, or a TNT or FedEx driver or what have you. It's all within the one system, which means everything's back in your ERP, which means that through F&O you can see everything. As part of that, you obviously need chain of responsibility checklists, you need fatigue management, you need to be able to monitor where they're going to make sure they're doing the right thing. The other thing that you do want to make sure is they're doing the right route too. So they're not you want to optimize the route they're taking, because sometimes truck drivers have different ways of doing things. All right. The other big thing that I find I see a lot in the market is everyone expects like real-time visibility of where their freight is. So they expect to know exactly where it is, because we've all been educated by Uber to, you know, I can see where my burger is. So I expect I should know where my freight is. So that's what we've put into our TMS. So you can actually see exactly where it is, which means, so that's at any point in time, which means that you can then advise your customers if you're running late, if there's been a traffic incident or there's a weather incident, you can actually proactively tell them that, hey, I'm running late, I'm going to be 20 minutes after the ETA, for example. That's really important if I come back to the BCF example, when you're unloading a kayak, it's really important to know if I'm running 2 hours behind, that might mean another store member needs to hang around to help with the unload, things like that. All right. So I want to be able to see my freight on an Uber style live map. I want to be able to have end-to-end visibility, factoring in distance, traffic, and all those types of things. I want the same experience for my customers. I want them to have the same experience, whether it's my own fleet or whether it's a TGE driver or whether it's a FedEx driver or a Border Express driver. I want the same process. I also want the same process for my invoice reconciliation. So I want to be able to reconcile my costings and go, does it make sense to have my own driver, or should I actually book the third-party carrier? So let's jump into this one. This is a view of our TMS. As you can see, it's within the same Cario system. And so right now we're pulling in, so we've pulled in a customer. All these orders have come in from an ERP. So they've come in from F&O, and a fleet allocator is allocating the jobs to, or a transport manager is allocating the jobs to create a run. And so they're creating a run here. This can be all automated. Doesn't have to be manual like this. We have some customers like Wink who have set runs. We have others that want to manage it like this. All right. So we can see here that this is the run that's come up. We've put the run together and we've gone preview route, and now it's showing us exactly the route that in the order that we've put it in. So we've put in manually, dropped all these orders in, and this is showing us now. And it calculates the time it's going to arrive. It calculates how long's left until the driver gets there, and the distance as well. So as you can see, it's a bit of a convoluted drive for this guy because it's just the order that has been put in. And sometimes that happens. We have customers where they absolutely have a set order that they need to deliver to, often in the medical space. And we have a couple of medical companies that's what they need. Now, if I pause now, you can see here we've got 2 hours, 7 seconds, and 2 hours and a half is when the driver's going to return in. We've just pressed preview, we've just pressed optimize the route. So it's 80 kilometres. And so we've got a whole bunch of algorithms in the back that then go and optimize this route for those customers that don't need to be in the order that's been given. As you can see here, it's dropped 10 kilometres and it's dropped half an hour or 35 minutes off the route. This is all fully integrated to Waze, Google Maps, Apple Maps. So the driver then gets this downloaded to their phone app and they get this route and they can plug it into whatever system they prefer to use as they're driving, and that's fine. So you can see here's the route's a cleaner, more optimized route than what we saw earlier. The important thing with this is now we can notify the delivery receivers as to their actual ETA, so they can actually be told what time they'll be getting the goods, and if there's any delays, we can proactively notify them. Cool. Okay. So that's the driver TMS. I think the main point here is that there's one system that handles every single freight process you have. So there's, instead of having spaghetti like connections to different carriers or having different freight systems for here, or warehouse system does this bit and ERP does a little bit of this, you have one system that handles everything, no matter what your freight process is. It's all in the one system, and that's fully integrated into F&O, which means your team only use the F&O and they don't have to actually even touch Cario. We have customers that just use the ERP. Okay. So I'm going to jump into something really exciting now, and this is our AI initiatives. We've been doing a lot with Microsoft and Fusion5. So Microsoft are actually funding a number of these AI initiatives because they see the power in the amount of data that Cario has. Because of the data across the network, you know, we see a lot around road. We can actively see where there's traffic issues or road issues. There's a whole heap of data, especially around freight costings and pricings across different carriers. So Microsoft have actually funded a number of initiatives with us and Fusion5. One of those initiatives, or a couple of those initiatives, I've got some ideas here to show you today. So one of those is a daily podcast. And the idea of that is a 2-minute video, giving a download, if you like, of all the key metrics and key things that they've picked, that the AI module has picked up over the course of the last 24 hours. So an ops manager or a head of supply chain might be sent this podcast every morning on their run to work, and they might play the 2-minute audio, and they can actually hear what's happened across their network, in their stores or in their warehouses and their carriers, what's happened and any opportunities for savings or or things they need to look at. The second part that's going to talk through as well is a video AI. So we've been doing a lot around having videos on a loading bay and picking up problems before they happen. And so one of those are in this podcast. So I'm just going to play this now. Yep. Let me see. Sorry, some reason it's not letting me click it. 2 seconds, sorry. I think I'm in the wrong. Right. Okay, AI, here we go. Let's try this one.
Daily DC download, Tuesday the 29th of May. Soundable Electronics. Good morning, David. Here's your logistics and ops rundown to set you up for the day. Let's start with customer trends. JB Hi-Fi inquiries are on the rise in NSW, likely tied to regional flooding delays. This looks temporary and should start easing in the next few days, but it's worth keeping a close eye on customer experience in those zones. Now on performance. The Iconic has dipped below 90% delivery performance for the 3rd week running. This appears linked to the new booking system, with carriers still adjusting. Best to confirm if that's the root cause. If performance doesn't lift soon, you might want to trial Blue Express or JK Express. They're averaging 95% on time and offer carton rates that suit your freight profile well. On inbound planning, you're scheduled to receive 7 40-foot containers over the next 5 business days. That's going to require a top-up of 180 CHEP pallets and relocating 70 pallets to external storage. Also, you'll need additional labor on Tuesday and Wednesday due to planned leave. Now's a good time to confirm any casuals or overflow support. Switching to cost efficiency, your 3 highest cost lanes over the past 6 weeks are Perth to Bunbury, Melbourne to Alice Springs, Melbourne to Coober PD. You might reduce spend by shifting Perth, Bunbury, and Alice to fortnightly fulfillment, and switching Coober PD to a dedicated full load model. And finally, a critical alert. Yesterday afternoon, AI video analysis flagged a dispatch of 4 CHEP pallets without any corresponding pallet transfer documentation. This was under Con Note UX.
Have you got audio? Sorry, did you say?
Yep,
Sorry,
I
Gareth.
I can hear it.
112312. Please refer to the images on the screen. You'll want to chase this up immediately with the receiver to prevent financial loss or CHEP exposure. I've already emailed your operations team, CCing the head of operations and yourself. That's your wrap for this morning. Let me know if you'd like this turned into a standing daily audio briefing or pushed to your ops team automatically. Talk soon and have a sharp day ahead.
Okay, so obviously with AI, it's still got a few things to learn. Have a sharp day ahead. I don't know anyone who says that, but that's okay. They're minor things that I think you get the general gist. It can advise a whole lot of information by looking at huge amounts of data and giving you the relevant points that you need to look at. And for a head of operations or a head of DC, that's really critical because there's so many data points, and knowing what you need to look at and what could improve and optimize your supply chain is really important. So that was just an example of some of the AI that we're doing, and that was all fictional. It was all Soundable Electronics, a company that we've made up. So yeah, there's a lot of exciting things happening with there. Okay, so just to recap, where are we? Cario handles all your freight management within your existing F&O ERP. So every screen you currently use through F&O, it can access all of Cario's power under the hood, and you don't need to actually do anything across your processes. It's all handled by Cario. And what is really nice about that is it means that you don't have to change your systems, don't change your processes. You can access the power of a freight management and transport management system within the systems your team know and use today. So yeah, that's the end of the presentation. Gareth, over to you.
Nice one. Thanks, Fiona. That was really good. And I quite like that podcast format as well. I'll just see if we have any questions submitted here. Give me 2 seconds. Okay, I've got one from Michael here. Do you offer this both in Australia and New Zealand?
Yep. Great question. We do. We launched in New Zealand 18 months ago. So we had a number of our customers in Australia wanting to manage their freight in New Zealand through the one system. So we launched there over 18 months ago. I think we've got about 15 odd carriers now in New Zealand. It does help the other director on Cario is a Kiwi, so from Tabuki. So we know New Zealand very well as well. So we have a number of customers over there now.
Right, and that was the second question there from Michael. How many carriers? So 15. And just from Jose, other rates, current rates as a customer, or something that you guys set as Cario?
Yeah, sure. So the idea of Cario is it's for companies to manage it themselves. So we don't have anything to do with the rates. They're your rates. We handle all the technical integrations with the carriers, and we rely on you. If you've got carriers that aren't on our network, we rely on you to introduce the carrier to us, but then we'll handle the onboarding of them onto our system, and they're your rates. So you handle those rates. In saying that, we do have a managed service offering for companies that don't want to handle the rates. There are companies out there that just want a single throat to choke, if you like. So a single supplier to manage all their tech, all their freight management, all the rates, all their negotiations, etc. And we do have that option as well. What you saw today was just your own rates, you take the system.
That's great. Thank you very much for that, Fiona. So I'll share a copy of recording of this event, and I'll make sure I've got a link directly to the Cario website. If you'd like to arrange a personalized demonstration, the team would be super happy to help you with that. And similar to Fusion5 as well. But I think we can wrap up there. Thank you very much to Fiona and Tom, our presenters for the day. And if you do have any further questions, please feel free to reach out to the guys on screen. Other than that, have a lovely rest of your day, team.
Thanks, guys. See you later.
Cheers.